My child, stop. Be still. Listen to me. You have wrestled with the weight of waiting, wondering if I had forgotten you, questioning if my silence meant neglect. But I tell you now, this moment is holy, for I am unveiling the mystery you could not see before. I waited, but your time was never mine. Those words you whispered in weariness are the doorway to understanding my heart. You stand on sacred ground, between your desire and my design, and I am about to show you that what you called delay was divine precision. So still your striving, open your spirit, and hear me now. You have often looked at the stretch of silence between your prayer and my answer and wondered, why must I wait so long? But I tell you, beloved, this waiting is not a punishment. It is a sacred classroom where you learn the rhythm of my heart. I am not distant in your delay, nor careless with your cries. Every moment of your waiting is held within my eternal hands. You see, you measure life by minutes and hours, but I measure it by growth and transformation. What you call waiting, I call shaping. When I withhold, I am not denying, I am refining. I am removing what cannot survive the weight of what you have asked for. You often ask me to move swiftly, but if I did, your roots would remain shallow. You would celebrate the answer yet fail to understand its purpose. Waiting is not merely about time passing, it is about you becoming. I do not waste your waiting. I use it to uncover the hidden parts of you that need my touch. I let the stillness reveal what your busyness hides. I let your longing teach you dependence. Every sigh you breathe out, every tear that falls unseen, becomes a prayer I collect, and with each one, I am softening, shaping, preparing. When you look at others and say they received their miracle, but mine is still unseen, remember this: no two seeds bloom in the same season. What I am growing within you cannot be rushed, for the soil of your heart must be deep enough to sustain what I will plant there. You may not understand now why I hold you in this divine pause, but one day you will look back and see that I was never withholding. I was fortifying. I have watched you wrestle between faith and fear, between trust and impatience. You have asked me, Lord, have you forgotten me? And I whisper, no, my child, I cannot forget what I formed. Even before you called, I had already written your answer into the story of your life. But the answer must meet its appointed hour, and that hour comes when you have learned to rest in my timing rather than resist it. So, do not despise your waiting. Do not call this season barren. It is not emptiness, it is preparation. When I am silent, I am sculpting. When I seem far, I am near, nearer than your breath, nearer than your pain. And though you cannot see what I am weaving, trust that every thread of delay is part of a tapestry designed for your good. I am teaching you not only how to wait, but how to wait with me. For when you learn that lesson, you will find that even the waiting itself becomes holy, and you will know that my ways, though mysterious, are never cruel, and my timing, though hidden, is always perfect. You remember those nights, don't you, when you stared into the ceiling and whispered, "Where are you, Lord?" You felt the echo of your own voice and mistook it for my absence. You thought silence meant I had turned away, but my child, I was nearer in that stillness than in all your loudest victories. My silence was never neglect. It was the language of intimacy. When you stopped hearing me, I was teaching you to sense me, not through noise, not through signs, but through trust. You see, I speak not only through thunder and miracles, but through pauses and still moments. When you thought I was doing nothing, I was rearranging everything. I was aligning people, events, even delays, all in orchestration with my purpose for you. I was softening hearts you hadn't met yet, moving obstacles you couldn't see, and whispering to storms that had not yet reached your horizon. You thought your prayers were falling on deaf ears, but I caught each one, even the ones you did have strength to finish. I heard the ones you prayed through tears, when all you could manage was my name. My silence wasn't abandonment, it was protection. For had I spoken too soon, you might have run ahead of me. Had I answered too quickly, you would have missed what I wanted to teach you in the waiting. Every pause in your life was intentional, every quiet moment a sacred invitation to trust deeper, to love me not for what I could give, but for who I am. When you couldn't trace my hand, I wanted you to learn to trust my heart. You wondered why others seemed to hear me clearly while you were left in confusion. But what you didn't see was that their season was different from yours. I wasn't giving you clarity, I was giving you closeness. You didn't need another sign. You needed a still heart that could rest in my presence. I hid my voice so you would learn to seek my face. And when you finally stopped striving to hear, when you finally let go of fear, that's when you began to recognize my whisper in ways you never had before. In the sunrise, in the scripture, in the peace that suddenly filled your chest when you least expected it. That was me, not gone, not silent, but speaking in ways you had yet to understand. So no, you were never alone in those quiet nights. I was there, waiting for your faith to deepen beyond the need for sound. For when you can trust me in silence, you will also hear me more clearly in the storm. You called it delay, but I called it mercy. You thought I was holding back your blessing, but I was holding back your breaking. There were doors you wanted me to open, opportunities you begged me to release, and relationships you thought were right, yet I closed them not out of cruelty, but compassion. My child, I see beyond your now. I see the roads that look golden but end in ruin. I see the desires that glimmer in your heart yet carry weights you are not meant to bear. So when you asked and I did not give, it was not rejection, it was redirection. I was guarding you from walking into a version of your future that would have harmed the very soul I came to heal. You call me faithful, yet often only when my faithfulness feels like favor. But what about when my faithfulness feels like delay? What about when I say, not yet, and the world moves on without you? Would you still believe that I am good? Every weight that you hear from me is soaked in mercy. There were doors that looked right in your eyes, but behind them were burdens you were not ready for. There were blessings you wanted that would have turned your heart away from me if I gave them too soon. You see, my mercy doesn't always arrive as a rescue. Sometimes it appears as a restraint. You have cried over seasons that I intentionally extended because I was still healing parts of you the world could not see. I delayed the promise because your heart wasn't yet strong enough to carry it. If I had given you what you wanted when you wanted it, it would have felt like a miracle for a moment, but it would have become a weight too heavy for you soon after. My mercy closed doors that pride wanted open. My mercy kept you single longer than you planned. My mercy said no when your plans seemed perfect. Because I am not only the God who gives, I am also the God who guards. And though you cannot yet thank me for the delays, you will. There will come a day when you look back and realize that every no was an act of love, and every wait was a wall of protection. You will see that I did not delay your destiny. I preserved it. My mercy may have felt like denial, but it was the very hand that saved you. You asked me to move quickly, to open the door, to fix the situation. But I do not act according to your urgency. I act according to your eternity. You want satisfaction, but I am working for salvation, not just of your soul, but of your story. When I seem slow, it is because I am weaving purpose where you see only pain. My timing is not meant to please your moment. It is meant to prepare your forever. Every delay, every detour, every divine pause is my hand restraining disaster, my wisdom shielding you from what your heart cannot yet comprehend. You measure success by how swiftly something comes to pass, but I measure it by how deeply you are transformed in the process. You wanted me to fix things, but I wanted to form you. You wanted relief from pressure, but I wanted to reveal my power through it. I am not a God who moves to satisfy your impatience. I am the one who moves to secure your salvation. My time is not dictated by the ticking of your clock, but by the unfolding of your character. When you prayed for something to happen sooner, I saw that if it came now, it would steal something far greater from you: your faith, your humility, your intimacy with me. I will not give you something that would cause you to drift from my presence just because you desire it deeply. What kind of father would I be if I gave you stones when you asked for bread? And yet, you call it waiting when I withhold what is harmful, and I call it deliverance. You say, Lord, I am ready, but I see corners of your heart still holding fear, pride, and the need to control. Until those are surrendered, my timing will remain divine restraint, not as punishment, but as protection. Understand this, my beloved, my timing is a shield, not a snare. When I delay, it is not to deny your joy, but to deepen it. I am saving you from victories that would cost you peace, from blessings that would blind you, and from answers that would lead you away from me. So when I move slowly, remember, I am not slow as you understand slowness. I am perfect in every step, and what you call delay is simply the unfolding of salvation disguised as time. Behold, the sun does not rise on your schedule, yet it still rises with precision at my decree, and so it is with your life. You may feel stuck in winter's grip, frozen by circumstances, waiting for growth, warmth, movement. But I tell you, every season you endure is under my sovereign design. The buds you yearn for today are unfolding behind layers of cold you think I should have removed. I am the gardener of your heart, and I allow frost so that your roots dig deeper, your faith becomes stronger, your hope endure longer. When you look at those around you sprouting green before you and wonder, why not me? Know this, I am not comparing you to them. I am walking you through your own unique cycle. Your season has its own appointed hour, and in its time you will blossom. You cannot hasten the spring by screaming at the earth to warm. The cycle obeys what I ordained, not what impatience demands. And so I allow you this winter of waiting, not to punish you, but to prepare you. I am crafting your character beneath the surface, teaching you endurance, sowing patience into your marrow, weaving courage into your silence. Every snowflake that fell without leaving a mark on your life was still used by me to shape the unseen. In your waiting you might think you are doing nothing, yet my hands are at work, pruning off what must perish, clearing debris you never noticed, watering hidden roots you cannot yet feel. When the hour is right, you will spring forth in my strength, not your own. You ask, how long must I wait? And I answer, until the season changes, until expectations give way to surrender, until your heart says, your will, your timing, until you trust me enough to stop chasing the sun and start seeking the source. Too often you sprint ahead of my timeline, stumble through a season not yours, and discover the harvest you picked too early spoils before you taste it. I will not allow that for you. Instead, I tether you to my timeline, to my rhythm. When the hour for your breakthrough arrives, you will see how the winter trained you, how the longing humbled you, how the waiting taught you to rely not on what you see but on who I am. You will emerge, not because you pressed open the bud, but because I caused it to open. I promise you this. The stretch of time you feel has been wasted will one day be revealed as the hour I prepared your deliverance. And you will understand that the delay was not delay. It was my appointed hour. Until then, dwell in the dormant place, but dwell in me. Let me shine my unseen warmth into your heart. Let me nurture what I planted. And when my voice whispers, "Now may you rise without fear, in perfect season, ready for what I have ordained," you are standing between two worlds, the one you believe in and the one you're living through. Your faith says, "Yes, I trust," and your frustration says, "But this is taking forever." If you lean into the frustration, you will miss the moment when faith becomes sight. Your heart wants assurance. Your spirit wants movement. Yet my timing does not bend to your agendas. I feel your heavy sighs, the nights you cried yourself to sleep, the prayers you whispered with trembling lips. I hold every tear, but I also hold you. And the tension of this in-between. I am not idle. I am inviting you to choose me, not just when life sings, but when it sighs. For it is in the space between promise and fulfillment that your faith is refined into a mighty force, and your frustration is transformed into endurance. You wonder if I've forgotten you. You glance around and see others walking freely while you trudge through the mire between what you've asked for and what I've appointed. Know this, I have not forgotten you. I see your steps, I count your scars. I know every time you've whispered my name when the world could not hear you. Faith is not the absence of waiting, it is the courage to believe in the waiting. Frustration is not your enemy. It is a signal of a heart ready for breakthrough but not yet aligned with my way. I allow the tension because I want you to see not only how much you want the promise, but how much you want the promise giver. In your frustration you may pace at the door. In your faith you must rest at my feet. That's where I meet you. In that waiting room of life, you cling to calendars, you cling to clocks, you cling to quick answers. But I am not tethered to calendars. The frustration you carry is heavy, too heavy to carry alone, and I tell you, lay it down. Cast your burden upon me and let the tension pull you into my presence rather than push you into impatience. When you do, your faith will bloom in the waiting, not because the waiting ends, but because your heart is changed. You will find peace in the pause, strength in the silence, and connection in the lack of visible movement. And when the hour of answer arrives, you will stand not as someone who sprinted and stumbled, but as someone who trusted and matured. I promise you, beloved, that in the tension between faith and frustration I am crafting someone who will not just receive what I promised, they will honor me for how I delivered it. Endurance will become your banner, surrender will become your anthem, and my presence will become your prize. So stop measuring your waiting by the clock and start measuring it by your closeness to me. In this tension you are not stuck, you are being stretched. And when you look back, you will say, "This season didn't break me, it built me." You believed I was distant, silent, inattentive, but my beloved, I was not ignoring you. I was preparing you. I watched the tears you thought fell unseen, and I heard the prayers you believed went unanswered. I saw how you longed for victory, for speed, for clarity. And because I love you more than you love your own success, I slowed the timeline. Because when I do give you the promise, I don't just want you to win. I want you to be ready. Demonstrate to me your heart is mature enough to steward what comes, your soul steady enough to sustain the response, your life rooted enough in me so that the gift doesn't become a snare. You thought I would paused. I was active, building, shaping, equipping. When you think of preparation, you often think of visible action, but most real preparation happens in the hidden places of your heart. I opened some doors and closed others. I let relationships shift. I allowed circumstances to challenge you, because I was teaching you humility, teaching you endurance, teaching you the posture of dependence so that when the moment arrived your heart would not be proud, but deeply rooted in gratitude. I was equipping you with unseen wings. When you believed you were immobile, you were actually being flight tested. When you felt weak, You were being wired for strength. When you thought you had nothing left, I was giving you enough. Not so you boast, but so you kneel. You glance at others who seem to have their breakthrough and wonder, why is my journey different? You forget that the harvest they reap now will not necessarily endure. I am preparing yours for generations. I am not giving you an answer that fades. I am releasing my power that lasts. And the waiting is the lab where your faith is purified. The preparation is quiet, but its product is loud. I am bringing you to a place of readiness, not just for what's coming, but for who you will become through what's coming. Eternity is not impressed by speed. It is shaped by readiness. You see my delay and feel discouraged. But I say to you, hold your heart. Do not regard the absence of visible progress as proof of absence of my work. I am far more at work in the invisible than you can track with your eyes. And in the moment when your life says now, and you feel my presence rush in, you will know. I was never late. I was always present. I was never ignoring. I was always preparing. And your days of waiting will become the foundation of your days of victory. You saw nothing moving, but I was moving everything. Behind the curtain of what you call delay, my hands were orchestrating details you could never imagine. You judge progress by what your eyes could see, but I was working in the invisible, far beyond your sight. I was shifting hearts that hadn't yet met you, preparing places you hadn't yet walked into, creating divine intersections that required perfect timing. You thought stillness meant stagnation, but child, stillness is the soil where my sovereignty grows. I do not announce every motion I make, for true faith is learning to rest in what I'm doing unseen. If I revealed every detail of my design, you would stop trusting and start calculating, and faith dies in calculation. So instead, I hid my work behind the veil, shaping the story while teaching you to keep walking in trust, not proof. You often asked, Lord, are you even doing anything? And I smiled, knowing that by the time you saw what I'd been doing, it would take your breath away. You see, I do my best work in secret. Resurrection begins in tombs, not stages. Just as seeds are buried before they bloom, I buried your promise for a season, not to destroy it but to protect it. Hiddenness is not abandonment. It's protection from premature exposure. The things I'm building and you must grow beneath the surface until their roots are deep enough to survive the weight of my promise. If you saw the construction process, the breaking, the pruning, the aligning, you might try to rush it, not realizing that each delay was part of the structure's strength. And while you waited, I was not only arranging what's around you, but what's within you. I was healing memories, writing motives, pulling out old wounds that would have poisoned your future. I was training you to hear my voice over the noise of your own impatience. So yes, I was silent, but not still. Every unanswered prayer was being placed on my divine schedule. Every no, every not yet, every closed door was being used to build something holy. Soon you'll look back and see that I was never idle. The waiting you endured was simply the backstage of your miracle. What you thought was stillness was synchronization, my will aligning perfectly with the world around you. And when I pull back the curtain, you'll understand. I wasn't delaying the story. I was perfecting the script. Nothing you went through was wasted. Every step was ordered, every silence intentional, every unseen movement divine. It was not the day your prayer was answered that everything shifted. It was the moment you will finally bow to mine. You remember that moment, don't you? When your heart broke open and you whispered through tears, "Not my will, but yours." That was when the heavens moved. You thought surrender was weakness, but in truth, surrender is the strongest act a soul can make. For until you let go of control, My power remains limited by your resistance. I never forced your hand. I waited for your heart. The waiting you called delay was really me waiting for that surrender, the divine exchange where your striving ended and my strength began. You prayed, you planned, you put. You tried to shape outcomes with your own understanding, but every time I let things unravel, it was to bring you closer to release. You see, surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. It's trusting that my way, though often slower, is always surer. When your will yielded, time itself began to align. The very resistance you felt before turned into a current carrying you toward destiny. That's the mystery of surrender. The moment you stop fighting my timing, you start flowing in my grace. I watched your heart soften through every disappointment, through every unanswered prayer, through every night you said, "I don't understand, but I still believe." Each of those moments was sacred. I was not just answering a prayer. I was shaping a vessel. I was teaching you that true peace is not found in control, but in communion. When you surrendered, heaven and earth met in harmony. Your desires were purified until they mirrored my own. What once felt like loss became liberation. What once felt like delay became direction. And now, you see the beauty of it. When you stop demanding that I move according to your plan, you begin to move according to mine. It is the power of surrender. It unlocks what striving never could. It shifts your prayers from "make it happen" to "make me ready." And when readiness meets revelation, my glory is revealed in its fullness. So yes, your surrender was the turning point, the invisible hinge on which your destiny swung open. Never mistake that quiet moment of release as small. It was the moment eternity touched your timeline, and everything began to change. I watched you chase so many things: answers, outcomes, people, recognition, all the while whispering to your heart, "I am enough." But it took the waiting, the silence, and the stripping away for you to finally see it. When I removed what you thought you needed, it wasn't to wound you, it was to reveal me. You were searching for peace in results, but peace is not a product of circumstances, it's the fruit of my presence. And so, I let certain doors remain closed until you discovered that what you really longed for was not the blessing, but the blesser. The moment you realized that I myself was the portion you'd been craving, that's when the storm inside you finally stilled. You had prayed for change, but I wanted to change you. You had asked me to give you what you lacked, but I wanted to become what you lacked. And when you finally sat in my presence without demanding, without timing, without performing, just resting, heaven rejoiced. That was the moment you learned the sacred secret of satisfaction. I am not just part of your life. I am the life itself. I am not your means to joy. I am your joy. When I seemed to take everything, I was really making room for myself. And when you let me fill the empty spaces, you found what no answer could provide, the peace that doesn't depend on progress. Now you understand why I didn't move when you wanted me to. I wanted to teach you to desire me more than results. I wanted you to know that even if I said no, I was still good. Even if the door stayed closed, I was still near. The blessing was never the goal. Intimacy was. I do not measure your faith by how loud you ask, but by how long you stay when I am silent. And you stayed. You stayed through confusion, through delay, through loss, and in that endurance, you found me. So when you finally whispered, "You are enough," it was not resignation, it was revelation. You discovered that I am the answer before the answer, the fulfillment before the fulfillment, the promise before the manifestation. And now, even as you wait for what's next, you are no longer empty, because the one you waited for is already within you. It happened suddenly, didn't it? After all the waiting, after all the wondering, after all the nights when you thought I'd forgotten you, the breakthrough came like the dawn breaking over a long, dark horizon. You almost couldn't believe it at first. One moment, silence. The next, my word unfolding in power. What are you praying for? What for? Hope for it stood before you, live. But what you didn't see was that the fulfillment didn't begin that day. It began in every moment you trusted me when nothing made sense. I was building the promise inside of you long before I placed it before you. Every tear watered the soil of its coming. Every surrender aligned heaven and earth for its arrival. And when it finally appeared, it was not a coincidence. It was completion. You thought I was late, but you see now I was exact. The day of fulfillment was not random. It was the appointed hour I had written before your first cry. I do not write, for I do not need to. I do not delay, for I do not forget. When I speak, my word runs ahead of time and commands creation to cooperate. And when that word returns, it never returns empty. You called it the miracle day, but I called it the maturity day, the day your faith, your patience, and your trust grew into the harvest I promised. My child, the waiting was not wasted, it was womb time. It carried the weight of transformation until your heart and the promise could meet in perfect alignment. Even as you rejoice in what I've done, know that the greatest miracle is not what you received, it's who you became. The waiting stripped away your pride. The silence drew you closer. The unanswered prayers taught you to listen for me instead of just results. And so, when the promise finally arrived, you were ready not just to hold it, but to steward it. You didn't run with it, you walked with me through it. You learned that fulfillment is not the end. It's another beginning, another doorway into deeper faith. Now you see, don't you? My word never fails, even when time seems to. I am the God of it is finished, and I fulfill not just my promises, but my purposes. And in that sacred moment when you realized everything had come full circle, you felt something eternal. Not just joy, but understanding. For what once felt like delay now feels like design, and what once felt like my distance now feels like my devotion. Now that you can see the path behind you, you understand what I was doing all along. What you once called confusion has become clarity. What you called delay now feels like divine timing. You see the places where I said no, and realize how merciful that no was. You see the prayers I didn't answer the way you expected, and you whisper now, thank you. Because had I given you what you wanted then, you would have settled for less than what I intended. The pain you resented has turned into wisdom. The waiting that broke you has become your testimony. Every piece that once felt random has fallen into place, and now the story makes sense in a way only hindsight can reveal. You look back and realize that my silence was never empty. It was filled with purpose. I was building your strength in secret. I was teaching you to recognize me not just in blessings but in battles. And though you didn't see me at every step, you can now trace my fingerprints across every season. You see how I closed the wrong doors before they could close on you. You see how I took detours that saved your heart from destruction. You see how I allowed heartbreaks that taught you discernment, delays that birthed dependence, disappointments that birthed deeper faith. Nothing was wasted, not even the pain. Everything you endured became part of your becoming. And now, you understand something sacred, that my love for you was never proven in how quickly I answered, but in how faithfully I carried you through the wait. You see, I wasn't just writing your story, I was writing you. Every moment of uncertainty was chiseling away what couldn't say. Every pause was pulling you closer to my heartbeat. You no longer ask, why did I wait so long? Instead, you say, how could I have learned this any other way? The wisdom that once seemed hidden is now your crown. You can speak peace to others still waiting because you know what it means to wait and survive. And you realize the greatest revelation of all, that I was with you not only when you received the promise, but through every second of your preparation. Looking back, you no longer see me as slow, you see me as strategic. You no longer call it delay, you call it deliverance. And in that realization, your faith is no longer fragile, it's fortified by understanding. Now you see it clearly. My time was never yours, but it was always perfect. You lived by clocks and calendars. I worked by seasons and purpose. You measured by minutes, I measured by meaning. I was never late, for I dwell beyond time itself. I let the moments stretch because I knew what needed to ripen, what needed to fall away, and what needed to align. While you watched the clock, I was watching your heart. I do not move by pressure, I move by precision. And when I move, everything falls into place with divine harmony. You often thought I was holding you back, but I was holding you together. You thought I was ignoring your urgency, but I was responding to your eternity. For what you wanted in a moment, I was shaping for a lifetime. I let you wait so that when the fulfillment came, you would recognize that it wasn't coincidence. It was covenant. You would know it wasn't luck, it was lordship. Every tick of time was working under my command. I never missed a beat. I was composing a symphony. You only heard the rests, the pauses, the silences. But when the melody finally played, you realized every still moment was part of the rhythm of redemption. My timing has always been the canvas upon which I paint my faithfulness. And though you couldn't see the full picture while it was being drawn, you now know that every delay was divine precision. I am not confined by your calendar. I do not rush because you are impatient, nor pause because you are afraid. My movements are measured, my promise is sure, my purpose is eternal. I am the Alpha and the Omega, your beginning and your ending, and all that happens in between is under my sovereign watch. And now, as you stand in the fullness of what once felt like waiting, you understand. I was never slow. I was steady. Never absent, always arranging. Never withholding, only preparing. My time was never meant to match yours, it was meant to mature you. And now, you walk not by haste but by harmony. You no longer chase the future, you trust me in the now. For you have learned that when my hand moves, it is never too soon and never too late. It is always right on time. Amen.